When the guy was 14, he had a crush on a guy, Claire says. Miscavige considered it proof that the man was treasonous and he was gotten rid of. That would happen on a regular basis. This is absolutely so disgusting, so heartbreaking. Like, let people be who they are. Just let people be who they are. Hello, everyone. Welcome back, or welcome if you're new. My name is Erin, and I am fascinated by all things cults, true crime, and unique spiritual practices. I like to do deep dives on cults every single week, cover some of the more intriguing, concerning, worrisome true crime cases. Oftentimes, those are missing people or cult related. And then there's my special series where I feature cult survivor stories or go ahead and debunk or roast cult leaders. And today we are going to go ahead and listen to some survivor stories because what better way to create empathy for cult survivors and people within cults than hearing from their own words. These are stories that people have either emailed to me, I've found in now defunct forums, or on Reddit. So I'm really excited to make this the very first installment of this series. So let me know if you would like future videos like this. Now, before we jump into our first story, I want to feature our teacher's wish list for today. Every single video this summer, I am featuring a different teacher's wish list so that hopefully, if you are able and you desire to, you can provide one of the items on that list. So let's meet today's teacher. Today's teacher is Chloe. She teaches second grade in Phoenix, Arizona. This fall, I am going into my third year of teaching, and I teach in a very high needs area. It's not uncommon for some of my students to have an unstable home life, which is why I want to provide a safe, loving, and comfortable classroom environment for them. I love watching your videos, and I really admire you for providing this opportunity for teachers. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. Something I've loved about sharing these teachers' wish list is so many of you are serving in either underserved areas or working with disabled children or special needs children. And it's really opened my eyes to all of the different needs that different children have. So thank you so much for providing that safe environment for these kids. And thank you in advance to anyone who wants to purchase an item for Chloe. You'll find her Amazon wish list in that pinned comment down below. And it can be really vulnerable to ask for help. So Chloe, thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing your list. And I hope that we can get as many of those items as possible. Today, we are going to share stories from several different cults. And our first one is going to be a Scientology story, which we've never really covered Scientology on this channel. Let me know if you want a deep dive. I feel like it's one of the most famous cults. So many people have covered it. There's so many movies and TV shows about it. But if you're unfamiliar or you just want a different perspective or a deep dive, like a comprehensive deep dive where all of the information can be found in one like really long video, let me know. I would be happy to do that because Scientology is one of the first cults that like really got me interested in learning more about them. And Leah Remini, I mean, she is mommy. So, okay. Okay, so let's get into this first story. My story in Scientology begins when I was a kid. My dad owned his own accounting practice and was privileged to have a visit from Sterling Management. They are a Scientology front group that seeks to install Hubbard's management technology in small businesses. It started off harmless enough. My dad was buying books by the dozen and reorganizing his practice. My sister and I were on children's courses at CC Dallas. When exactly my parents went from this is interesting to religious fanatics, I have no idea because I was too young. All I know is around this time, my dad stopped raising me and started letting Scientology brainwash me into being a good Scientology kid. I went through several schools as my dad moved us from Texas to California to be closer to the tech. We eventually settled down in Los Angeles and started studying at a mission. I went on to do my Purif and objectives and soon had the fire of a euphoria addicted Scientologist in my eyes. It wasn't until recently that I would discover the psychological mechanisms behind auditing. Now, auditing is the process of holding on to these like cans. There's like a famous picture of John Travolta in an auditing session, and he's holding these cans, and based off of, I forget exactly what their theory around it is, but someone asks you a series of questions, you hold on to these cans, and these cans like read your energy and can decipher where you are on their path up through the bridge to basically enlightenment. They believe that we have all of these like beings inside us, and they want to clear all of those like beings because those are all negative entities essentially. So that's why you see in the documentary Going Clear or Clearing the Planet, it is clearing people of these little I think they're called thetans that like I really need to brush up on my Scientology. I might do that deep dive just for me. They need to clean out all these thetans for basically the betterment of not just you, but for like the entire planet. Yes, it's very sci fi, very strange. And I mean, not surprising because L. Ron Hubbard, the creator of Scientology, was a science fiction writer, and he's quoted as saying the easiest way to get rich is to start a religion. So it really makes you wonder. Anyways, when I was about 13, my dad would take me to AOLA with him, and the Sea Org recruiters would look at me like I was a Little League player at a NAMBLA convention. They would tell me how theta and aware I was. Of course, I was flattered because I'd been taught to believe these people were elite. And to me, a kid, they were like G.I. Joe or Power Rangers. The next 2 years, I spent crying, fighting, screaming, being kept up till 2 in the morning, practically kidnapped by these people. They would follow me to school, follow me after school, chase me on PAC base, call me at all hours of the night. I had no support from my parents during this time. My dad blamed me for pulling it in, and my mom would only tell me how proud she would be if I joined the Sea Org. At 14, I was completely at the mercy of ruthless psychological torture, including mild forms of sleep deprivation and starvation. I felt abandoned by my parents, and I felt like I would never have their respect unless I joined the Sea Org. I was routed onto staff at AOLA at the ripe old age of 15. I'd been convinced that I would see my family regularly, get regular days off, and work a regular schedule. I was told how nice the new building was and going to be, and how nice the area where I slept would be. Of course, it was a much different story when I actually started living there. The rooms on the EPF were nice. That is about all that was true about what I was told. After my parents so generously abandoned me to the church, I spent a month on the EPF. Here, I was being introduced to the dark side of Scientology. I almost immediately wanted to go home. I spent every day going through the psychological torture of never being good enough and the old cult trick of putting you down one day and building you up the next, switching between screaming at you and being your best friend. It has done a copious amount of psychological damage to me. And something that's really concerning about Scientology is the disconnection they almost, I guess they really do encourage within families because they want to break all of those personal ties that you have so that you A, don't trust each other, and B, your energy, your focus is always on the group, always on Scientology. So I think they don't really believe that children are children no matter how old they are. So they might look at a 2-year-old child and see that that child has needs that need to be met by a parental figure, but they believe that that child is actually just a small person. Everyone is an adult but in a smaller body, and they are treated as such. So when they pull the parents away from the child's life in order to go on their mission to clear the planet, they create this deep detachment from parent to child that is extremely detrimental to that child's health. So it wouldn't surprise me if this person was experiencing that and if his parents were being brainwashed into believing that, well, he's basically an adult, he needs to work towards clearing the planet. And so he's feeling abandoned because he's a minor and his parents left him. But his parents are being told, oh, he's just a smaller adult. He just needs to work like any other adult. It's so, so sad. After a month of being brainwashed while cleaning dishes and bathrooms and running everywhere, I was put on post at AOLA, where I quickly found out that I wasn't allowed to make personal phone calls unless I spent some of my $30 a week salary on it. Yeah, so these people are working full time, more than full time, really, and they make such a tiny amount of money. I mean, it's not surprising to me, knowing what I know about Scientology, that he made $30 a week and he basically lived where he worked. $30 a week. I was put in a room with 30 other men and boys ranging from 14 to 60 in age. It smelled horrible. There was no AC or heating, and I was exposed daily to the company and sight of naked boys my age and older men during the height of puberty. This is relevant later. I worked 15 to 20 hours a day, with maybe one day off a month if I was lucky. I was supposed to be going to school, but that didn't happen. They pull you out of school. They make it seem like if you have any interaction with anyone outside of the group, then they create that us versus them mentality. So this is a tactic they're using to create an us versus them mentality and protect this person from gaining any outside information, education, because then this person might start thinking critically for themselves and they might stop believing in Scientology. This is a classic us versus them tactic being enforced by Scientology. Also, it creates this dependency on Scientology because if you're not getting an education or some kind of skill that you can use for a career, let's say if you want to leave Scientology, that financial distress is going to cause you to stay in Scientology because if this person he knows his parents are really deeply ingrained in Scientology. He knows they're incredibly brainwashed. They've literally abandoned him so that they can work for Scientology. And he believes that the only way they will be proud of him is if he also works for Scientology. But let's pretend he wants to get out and escape, but he has no money, no family on the outside, no support system on the outside, and he has no means to even get a job, has no idea how to even find a place to live, and he's completely financially dependent upon Scientology. Because even though he's barely making a salary anyways, he also has no means to get a job because he's going to have no training in any other skill. It's so sad and so heartbreaking when young children are pulled into cults like this and then it can like transform the rest of their lives. This is good. I did eventually get my high school equivalency, though. I was screamed at daily about how worthless I was, while at the same time being told I was important. It was awful. I was in constant fear of being caught doing something human, like getting sick, eating, taking a dump, or having a non post related conversation. I hardly got to see my parents for the next 2.5 years. Eventually, I was sent to train at Flag in Clearwater, Florida. This whole time I wanted out, but I couldn't mention it to anyone. I had to bury the feeling and hide it from everyone. I couldn't even tell my parents how I felt or what I was going through because it is considered a high crime by the religion. Keep in mind, I'm still a child. Prior to joining Sea Org, I had noticed I had a tendency to find my own sex attractive, and eventually I ended up fooling around with another guy at Flag. I was 17, I believe he was 19 or 20. We got caught, I got kicked out. My dad blamed me for everything and threatened to disown me. I still swore by Scientology for a few years before I started to separate myself from it and reflect on all I had been through. I started to doubt my beliefs and I started to feel scared and confused. Then I discovered human psychology and I've been studying it to get some grip on what I've been through. I decided I would no longer practice Scientology after looking into it further and seeing lack of results and shrinking numbers of patrons. I quickly realized what a money pit it was, and watching my parents buy re-released sets of books for thousands of dollars. Seeing that our family had only gone downhill since my parents began participating in the religion. Also, after realizing much of Scientology only works within Scientology. I have also lied to the e-meter a few times, so I know that doesn't work either. I'm much happier staying away from the church and having friends that have nothing to do with Scientology. I make more money and have better benefits working for companies that have nothing to do with Scientology. I still have not told my parents that I want nothing to do with the church because I don't want to lose them and because my dad is ill and doesn't need the stress. I just avoid the conversations and don't go to the events. My parents have invested too much into the church, including their youngest son, my brother, for me to even hope to convince them of my position. Why I still feel obligated to my parents who have done nothing but take advantage of me and basically failed me as parents is beyond me. This whole thing has damaged me in ways I am still, 11 years later, just now starting to see. The Village Voice actually ended up sharing this person's story, and we finally learned his name. His name is Derek. And they share the post that we just read, but they offer some more clarifying details to some of the things that Derek was sharing. So, when you first enter into Scientology, you're required to do something called the Purification Rundown. And if my memory serves me correctly, I believe if you continue to show distrust or you break rules, they make you do the Purification Rundown again. And it's one of the core practices in Scientology. It's a quote, risky detox program that physicians have repeatedly characterized as a sham. It involves sitting for up to 5 hours a day in a sauna for weeks at a time while ingesting massive amounts of niacin. When he wasn't in the sauna, Derek was doing the objectives, which were strange routines that have Scientologists doing repetitive tasks like talking to inanimate objects such as ashtrays and bottles. This is supposed to train their minds for better communications, or as critics say, unquestioning obedience. So, this journalist asks Derek to go into a little more detail about his time with Scientology. I started developing a relationship over a few months with a fellow male staff member. We eventually got caught by another roommate and we were written up. He was from the UK and we were both sent home. I found him on Facebook recently. He hasn't blocked me, but he has not responded to my messages either. Derek added that he had known for years that he was gay. I just finally acted on it, he says. He was routed out of the Sea Org on his 18th birthday for being gay. So, Scientology is inherently homophobic. I was taken home. My father was angry. He told me I was going to be a child molester and molest my little brother. After that, I never trusted him, and I never again spoke to him about my private life. L. Ron Hubbard, in the 1950 book that became the foundational text for Scientology, Dianetics, the Modern Science of Mental Health, called homosexuality a perversion. The next year, in his book Science of Survival, Hubbard described in detail his concept of an emotional tone scale, which could measure how alive a person was, with 0 equating death and tone 40 serenity of beingness, the highest state a person could attain. He classified homosexuals as 1.1 on the tone scale, covert hostility. Former Scientology executives tell me that this was a concept well known to them all and something drilled into them repeatedly. That according to Hubbard, homosexuals were not to be trusted because they were hiding their treachery, but also, just as important, they could be handled through auditing so that they, like any other Scientologist, would move up on the tone scale as they achieved spiritual advancement in the religion. So basically, he thinks that L. Ron Hubbard thinks that you can it's the equivalent to praying the gay away. It's another purification aspect. It's so misguided and offensive. Did this mean, I asked Claire Headley, a longtime and important former executive who worked at Scientology's secretive base near Hemet, California, that Scientologists believed that auditing could actually cure quote unquote gays? It's a cure. That's right, she says. If you're auditing, you're going to move up the tone scale, and so you won't be 1.1 anymore. But the Sea Org really wasn't taking any chances. In order to join the Sea Org, you have to be approved by a fitness board. You do the EPF, do menial labor, and marching drills, but you also fill out a life history, a 30-page form. You have to detail everything you've ever done your entire life, your sexual partners, every sexual partner, every drug you've ever taken, every relative who's ever worked for the government, for the media, or has ever said anything negative about Scientology. But even with that kind of scrutiny, Scientology leader David Miscavige would still call for Sea Org members to be investigated for any possibility that they were hiding gay tendencies. There were so many times when that kind of thing would come up, and it was always a huge flab. She tells me of one incident in particular, which involved a Sea Org member who had been married for 20 years. But for some reason, Miscavige considered him a threat and asked that the man's life history be examined. When the guy was 14, he had a crush on a guy, Claire says. Miscavige considered it proof that the man was treasonous and he was gotten rid of. That would happen on a regular basis. This is absolutely so disgusting, so heartbreaking. Like, let people be who they are. Just let people be who they are. How is it treacherous to it's so like the mental gymnastics you have to do. Oh, if you're gay, you're being treacherous. But I literally am being honest with you and telling you that I'm gay. Wouldn't that mean that I'm being honest and not treacherous? Oh, not to David Miscavige. Something's wrong with you. What? That makes zero sense. Absolutely zero sense. It makes no sense. Like, make it make sense. Please, somebody, please. So we're going to take a little pivot away from Scientology and move on to some other cults. Now, these are just people sharing brief anecdotes about their time or their family's time or someone they know's time in a cult. So not every single cult is mentioned by name. I just want to let you guys know that before we jump in. This first one is, my dad is in a cult. He wakes up, does his guru worship, does work, yells at us for not believing in the cult, pushes cult practices on us, does more worship after work, reads the cult's books before bed. There is a reason why I don't live there anymore. It really consumes his whole life. He gives them thousands of dollars and he forgets about everyday things because he's so blinded. For instance, the cult has led him to believe that if he meditates, he will have good health. He doesn't exercise or eat well, and if we tell him to go exercise with us or slow down on dessert, he lectures us about spiritual health. He's experienced thyroid cancer, high blood pressure, obesity, some thyroid disease, and other ailments. That is so dangerous. It's so dangerous and so heartbreaking to know that there are people who are letting their health just diminish because they really, really believe that they can heal any ailment with their spiritual practice. And I understand that having someone else looking out for you or supporting you or healing you can feel very comforting. I completely understand that. But we have to think a little bit about where we are as a society. We live as long as we do because of modern medicine, because of sciences. And it has been proven that we need to do certain things to take care of our bodies. Eat well, exercise, do things because they just help you stay healthy and help with longevity. We've seen so many cult leaders encourage their followers to get off their medication, to not believe that they have some kind of mental health diagnosis, to heal whatever their ailment is because they believe that source energy is light will penetrate their body and heal them. I have a friend who thinks that she healed her ovarian cysts or cancer by doing light work. Like, not like red light therapy. I'm talking like envisioning light coming into her body and healing her that way. And it's troubling because then I see her year after year and it seems like her health continues to get worse, and it's concerning. Two things can be true, right? There have also been studies that show that meditation is really good for your nervous system, and it lowers your cortisol levels, and it can be really helpful for mental health for people who have racing thoughts or anxiety or depression. There is value in some of these practices, but there's not value in only these practices. It's my belief that it's vitally important to understand what's going on with your body or your mind and take the steps necessary in order to heal that part of you, whether or not it aligns with your spirituality. There are people who are resisting life saving medical solutions because they don't believe in blood atonement. So they won't get a blood transfusion and then they will pass away. It's dangerous to be so obsessed with living in one way when another solution might actually heal you, might actually help you. And it's so heartbreaking to see and hear that so many people get stuck in this way of thinking, or just so, I hate to use the word brainwashed because I feel like that word's not taken as seriously as it should be. That is what it is. It's brainwashing. People are being brainwashed into believing that if they just spend time near their guru, the guru will heal every ailment they have. And that is simply not true. Ex Jehovah's Witness here. I would say that we were only different and our whole lives revolved around service to Jehovah. Saturdays, you went in proselytizing door to door. Sunday was a 2-hour church service, followed by another hour of door to door. Oh my gosh, sounds like my nightmare. Tuesday evenings was 1 hour Bible study where we usually discussed verse for verse one of the books of the prophets. Wednesday night was family study where my dad would usually pick a topic he felt was a problem applicable to our family. This ran at least an hour. Thursday night was our ministry school where we learned to be better in our preaching and better public speakers. Oh my gosh. So they literally, Saturday through Thursday, you are doing some activity for your church outside of work, outside of homework, outside of exercising. That is so much time. We were to be no part of the world. So we were not allowed to be friends with kids at school. No dances, no organized sports. Our friends had to be other kids in the congregation, or when we were old enough to drive, kids from other neighboring congregations. Yeah. Walks, talks, like a cult. They don't want you to talk to anyone who is not in the cult, even as a child. Our entertainment was strictly policed. We were only to read literature approved by the organization. No music or movies with magic, language, or sexual situations. The literature we were allowed to read was very heavy on the brainwashing. Kids' books that openly portrayed people being killed for disobeying? Oh my gosh. We were just very sheltered as everything outside of my little universe was controlled by Satan and or to mislead me. My world was just very small. That said, I honestly believe my parents were doing what they felt was best for me. I was loved. We did fun things together. We had toys. But witnesses weren't allowed to be as people who they really want to be. They sacrifice happiness in this life for a seat in the next one. So they are a very anxious, depressed people. That's so sad. It's so sad. So this person shares a basic day in the life of being in the cult they were in. You wake up and pray. Went to school and had to sing a song about how great our leader was before we started. Lunch was lunch. Then after we would all pray together and then sing some other songs about our leader and how blessed we were that we had him to guide us. Maybe me and my friends would go to someone else's house before we went home, and when we would see the leader's picture, we would kiss our fingers and then press it to the picture. We would talk about boys who would get married first and who would be the unlucky one to reach 20 unmarried. Sometimes there would be a mandatory meeting, and if you didn't get there within 30 minutes, you would be kicked out of the cult. Wait, what? Can you imagine? I can't imagine getting anywhere within 30 minutes. If someone was like, you need to be here in 30 minutes, I'd be like, I will not be there. Sorry, I won't. I won't. I've got stuff to do. As you can imagine, those were always a big turnout. The meetings were always the same. How lucky we are. The leader has chosen us out of all the other people in the world. But if we were really lucky, he'd be able to Skype and he would lecture us about our place and how he could be anywhere else, or that he wasn't getting all his payments. The people who were really religious would be scribbling all of this down to ponder over later. Anyway, after the meeting or on the pickup from school, we would just talk about how blessed we were and how sad it was for the people that left the cult and now would go to hell. Oh, I'm so sad for all those people who left. They're all going to hell. Really? Come on. Don't falsely grieve for the people that left the cult. That's just a tactic to make the people who are still in the cult fear ever leaving or getting kicked out. Then home, dinner, a G-rated or approved movie, prayer, and sleep. A typical day. Oh my. I couldn't. I'm someone that's like, I don't know if it's because I'm a Gemini, but I am someone that needs like a very loose routine. Like every day, there are certain things I know I am going to do that make my day better. Like I know if I wake up and I meditate before looking at my phone, which is honestly so hard to do, I meditate and then I go directly to the gym and I exercise, I know I'm going to have such a productive day. But do I do that every morning? Did I do that this morning? No. And I used to, when I was really deep into spirituality, I was so regimented to the point where if I missed a part, just a piece of my very long, like 45-minute morning routine, I the day would be ruined. I would shame myself all day long. And that's where I think that some of this cultic behavior kind of bleeds into some of the self-help aspects of what we see online. You know, you have your like Hubermans and your productivity experts and your motivational speakers who are like, I wake up at 4, I meditate, I reflect, I write a novel, I go to the gym for 2 hours, I come home, I eat, I do cardio for 45 minutes. And you're just like, what? Does that make you feel better than me? My morning routine used to be I would wake up, get my coffee, I would journal, I would write a gratitude list, I would meditate. Oh, I would also do breath work before I meditated, and it literally would take me like 45 minutes to 60 minutes. And then I would always pressure myself to get to a yoga class or go to the gym. And if I missed one piece of that 5 to 6 piece morning routine, oh, I was a terrible person. How dare I? I don't deserve any of the things that I want from the universe. I'm never going to manifest what I want because I'm not willing to wake up and work hard enough to get it. And so when you get into this like routine where you're told, oh, this is going to save you, this is going to get you what you want, this is going to make you be the best possible version of yourself, and you miss one of those steps, you instantaneously start shaming yourself. And it's so easy to get into this cycle. I mean, anyone who has any like regimented spiritual practice, I feel like needs to just be aware, like very self-aware and careful. If you miss that spiritual practice, how mean are you to yourself? Do you shame yourself? Because remember, this is the only place that we have to live. We have to hear all of our own thoughts. We have to hear our own self-shame and negative self-talk. So what I've learned about myself is it doesn't serve me to give myself a strict to-do list every single day. What works for me is creating like an outline of what I like to do every day. Like today, I know, okay, I want to go to the gym, I want to shoot this video, I want to edit it, and I want to repurpose my studio a little bit, shift some things around. I know if I can get all of those things done, it doesn't really matter the order, but if I can get all of that done today, I will feel good. Did I miss my workout this morning? Yes, but I can still go later this afternoon. I only share a personal anecdote, not because I want to talk about my life and share with you guys my routine because I think it's any better than anyone's. I'm just saying, figure out what works for you personally and don't shame yourself if whether you are in some kind of spiritual practice or religion or don't believe in any of that stuff or don't really care about having any kind of like morning routine, whatever it is that serves many pillars of your life. Like, are you speaking to yourself well? Are you doing something to move around every day? Are you moving towards your goals or being a little productive every day and able to move through your day without shaming yourself if you miss one of those things? I think that's the healthiest way to be. I think that having these like structured days only create more stress. And I don't know if and I don't believe if we're in a high state of stress, we're really able to connect to ourselves and see God and achieve the things we want to achieve. Because I feel like a lot of spirituality is connected with some kind of desire. We want to get to heaven. We want to manifest wealth. We want to be one of the last 144,000. We want a seat next to Jesus at the throne. We just want to avoid hell at all costs. Like, whatever the thing is that we want, there's a rule book placed in front of you by that religion that tells you how to get what you want. And then you feel pressured to follow all of these rules and all of these routines when it's not really serving you in the long run. So I would just encourage anyone watching this who's getting like stuck in some kind of like spiritual routine and self shame to zoom out a little bit and open your eyes, see the bigger picture. It's okay if you miss your prayer tomorrow. It's okay if you wake up on a Sunday and you just can't go to church or you're sick. It's okay if you can't meditate every single morning. It's okay if you miss your workout, okay? Like, be gentler on yourself and kinder to yourself. But hey, if you're someone that like you've got your routine down and it works for you and you feel great, then forget everything I said. That's the beauty of being a human is we can figure out what works for us and we can share what works for us without expecting it to work for every other person, right? Anyways, I think that's enough stories for today. I know I went on a little bit of a tangent at the end, but guys, I'm just like channeling advice from above. So you should listen to that advice. Obviously, I'm joking. Anyways, you guys, thank you so much for joining me today. Let me know if you like this style of video. And if you have a cult story, whether it's you or a family member or a friend, feel free to email me at letfresherin@gmail.com. I really look forward to sharing your story because your story might help someone else see a red flag. Thank you guys so much again. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and I will see you in my next deep dive very soon. Thanks so much. Bye.